Have you ever wondered why you can get some things almost instantly, while others seem to take forever to show up? Well, it's not just about what we want. Turns out there's this hidden economic blueprint that controls just how fast producers can react. And today, we're going to uncover it.
Think about it. You see a t-shirt you love online, and boom, it's at your door in a day. But the housing market? Man, that can feel totally frozen for years, with prices just going up and no new homes anywhere in sight. You know what? This isn't random. It's a puzzle, and there's a single, really powerful economic key that unlocks the whole thing.
So what's at the heart of this mystery? Well, it's something called the supply squeeze, and it's all about how flexible producers can be when prices suddenly change. Some can pivot on a dime, while others, well, they're pretty much locked in place.
And that flexibility, it's literally everything. It's why a shortage of face masks could eventually get sorted out, but a housing shortage can feel like it's going to last forever. You can think of it like an economic X-ray, one that lets us see the actual bones of a market.
So, how do we actually measure this flexibility? I mean, how do we put a number on it? Well, economists have a specific tool for this, a metric that tells us just how well a company can respond. It's called the Price Elasticity of Supply.
Price elasticity of supply, or PES for short, really just boils down to one simple question. If the price of your product suddenly goes up, how much more of it can you actually make and sell? It's all about the producer's reaction.
Now, it's really important not to get this mixed up with its more famous cousin, price elasticity of demand. See, demand is all about us, the consumers, and how our buying habits change. But PES, what we're talking about today, is the other side of the coin. It's all about the producers.
Okay, so to read this economic X-ray, all you really need to remember is one single number, the number 1. That's it. It's the magic dividing line that tells us if a supply chain is flexible and stretchy or if it's rigid and kind of brittle.
All right, so let's put this into practice. Let's see what happens when the PS value is greater than, less than, or equal to 1. This is where the theory gets really interesting and really real. Okay, take a look at this. If the PES is greater than 1, we say the supply is elastic. Think of a stretchy rubber band. Companies that make clothing or electronics can ramp up production pretty quickly. But if the PES is less than 1, the supply is inelastic. It's rigid, like concrete. Think about building new houses or growing crops. You can't just snap your fingers and make more. And that last one, unitary, that's mostly just a theoretical idea.
Let's make this super clear. Imagine the price for a product jumps by 20%. A clothing company with that elastic supply might boost its output by a massive 40% to cash in on those higher prices. But a farmer with inelastic supply, they might only be able to increase their output by a tiny 5% because, they're limited by their land in the growing seasons. Huge difference, right?
Okay, so we've seen what happens. But now, for the really interesting part, why does it happen? What are the underlying factors, the sort of economic physics that make one industry's supply stretchy and another one so rigid? Let's break it down.
It turns out there are a few key ingredients that go into the PES mix. Things like how much time you have, whether a factory has any spare capacity, how much stock you've got sitting in a warehouse, and even how easily a company can switch from making one thing to another. And out of all of these factors, time is the absolute king. In the short run, pretty much every business has an inelastic supply. Why? Because they're stuck with the factory and the staff they have right now. But give them enough time, what we call the long run, and that supply becomes elastic. They can build new factories, they can hire and train more people, they can totally transform their ability to produce.
Then you've got spare capacity. If a car factory has an idle assembly line just sitting there, its supply is pretty elastic. It can be fired up tomorrow if needed. But if that same factory is already running 24/7, its supply is super inelastic. There's just no more room to make anything else.
And what about having stuff on hand? Stock. A company with a giant warehouse full of its product has a very elastic supply. A price spike hits, and they can just open the doors and start shipping. But think of a fisherman selling fresh fish right off the boat. There's no warehouse. What he catches today is all he's got. His supply is incredibly inelastic.
Okay, so we've got the theory down. But what's the point? How does this stuff actually work in the real world? Well, this is where PES becomes a seriously powerful tool. And not just for economists, but for business leaders and governments trying to solve real problems. I mean, think about it. When a crisis hits, like a fuel shortage or a sudden, desperate need for medical supplies, governments that understand pests can make much smarter decisions. They can actually predict if a market is going to fix itself quickly or if it's going to need a helping hand to become more flexible.
Let's circle back to that housing problem. We know housing supply is super inelastic. Now, a government that doesn't get pests might try to help by giving subsidies to buyers to make houses more affordable. So what happens? Well, demand shoots up, but since supply is fixed, remember, it's inelastic, the only thing that really changes is the price. It just skyrockets. A smarter policy, one that uses pests, would tackle the real problem, making supply more elastic, maybe by fixing complicated planning rules.
And this, right here, is the crucial takeaway. Price elasticity of supply is like a diagnostic tool. It tells you whether you should focus on calming down demand or if you need to roll up your sleeves and start breaking down the barriers that are choking off supply.
So I'll leave you with this. The next time you hear about a shortage, a big crisis, or some sky-high price for something, ask yourself, is this just about people wanting more stuff? Or are you actually seeing the hidden effects of an inelastic supply? Once you start looking for it, you'll see it absolutely everywhere.